Unity used to feel safe. It sounded like warmth, like protection, like something you reached for when the world felt unstable. Unity was the word people used when they wanted peace, when they wanted harmony, when they wanted the fighting to stop. But somewhere along the way, unity stopped being an invitation and started becoming a demand that came with conditions, a demand that said, lower your voice. Don't bring that up. Why are you making this uncomfortable? Why can't we all just move on? Unity began to mean silence, and that is where the distortion began. Because real unity was never supposed to cost you your voice. It was never designed to require forgetting, and it was never meant to feel like shrinking. Yet today, unity is often used as a response to truth, not to violence, not to injustice, not to harm, but to truth. The moment someone names what happened, names what continues to happen, names what was never repaired. Someone says, but what about unity? And suddenly, unity is no longer a bridge, it's a break. Unity became something you were expected to perform. Smile more, speak softer, choose your words carefully. Don't sound angry, don't sound emotional. Don't sound like this matters too much to you. Unity became a test, and if you failed that test, you were labeled divisive, not because you broke unity, but because you refused erasure. Here is the philosophical mistake we inherited. We were taught that unity means agreement. We were taught that unity means sameness. We were taught that unity means conflict disappearing. But agreement is not unity. Sameness is not unity. And silence is not peace. Unity is not the absence of difference. It is the ability to remain connected in the presence of difference. And when unity cannot survive honesty, it was never unity. It was control wearing a moral mask.
Here's the part we rarely say out loud. Sameness feels peaceful to the people whose identity already fills the room. If the world already reflects you, your language, your norms, your history, your values, then sameness doesn't feel like loss. It feels like order. It feels like calm. But for everyone else, sameness feels like disappearance. When people say, "Why are you making everything about race? Why are you bringing up the past? Why can't we just be human?" They're not actually asking philosophical questions. They're expressing fatigue. Fatigue with complexity. Fatigue with holding more than one truth at a time. Fatigue with being asked to widen their emotional range. Sameness is easy. Difference requires effort. Sameness pretends to be neutral, but neutrality always serves the dominant narrative. Because neutrality doesn't erase power, it preserves it. That's why calls for unity almost always arrive after someone names harm. Not before the harm, not while the harm is happening, after. Unity becomes a way to stop the conversation right when it starts to matter, and that's when unity becomes coercive. Unity that demands silence is not peace, it's suppression. Unity that asks people to forget is not healing, it's avoidance. Unity that requires sameness is not unity at all, it's emotional outsourcing.
Difference was never the real problem. Hierarchy was. At some point in human history, difference stopped being descriptive and became evaluative. Not different experiences, but better and worse ones. Not different cultures, but advanced and backward ones. Hierarchy took difference and added judgment. And once judgment enters the picture, unity becomes impossible. Because you cannot unite across difference while secretly ranking it. Hierarchy needs a ladder of progress, a ladder of civilization, a ladder of worth. And for that ladder to stand, someone has to be placed lower. Hierarchy survives by pretending it's logical. It calls itself common sense. It calls itself realism. It calls itself just the way things are. But hierarchy is not truth. It is fear pretending to be measurement. Because if everyone's humanity is equally valid, the ladder collapses. If difference does not imply deficiency, ranking becomes meaningless. And that is why unity fails when hierarchy goes unnamed. Unity without hierarchy does not deny difference. It removes the measuring stick. It says, you do not need to be more like me to be worthy. You do not need to erase yourself to belong. You do not need to shrink for us to stand together. That is where real unity begins.
From a biological perspective, resistance to difference is not ideological, it is neurological. The human nervous system is designed for survival. Survival prioritizes predictability. Sameness feels predictable. Difference introduces uncertainty. Uncertainty is interpreted as threat. When a system encounters unfamiliar information, it does not ask, is this true? It asks, is this safe? And when history, memory, or accountability appear suddenly, the nervous system often responds with defense rather than curiosity. This response is not moral failure, it is physiology. But physiology unexamined becomes policy, and policy built on fear creates fragile unity. Avoidance soothes the nervous system temporarily, but avoidance does not heal. In the short term, silence reduces stimulation. In the long term, silence increases instability. Systems that never learn to tolerate discomfort become brittle, and brittle systems shatter under pressure. True unity requires regulation, the capacity to remain present while experiencing discomfort without lashing out, without shutting down, without demanding erasure. This is not ideological work. It is nervous system work. When people say, this conversation is divisive, what they often mean is my system is overwhelmed. And overwhelmed systems seek escape. Escape through silence. Escape through simplification. Escape through sameness. But growth does not happen through escape. It happens through expansion. A regulated system can hold difference without collapsing into threat response. An unregulated system confuses discomfort with danger. This is why mature unity feels unsettling at first, because it requires emotional stamina, not emotional bypassing.
Unity was never meant to erase difference. It was meant to hold it. Unity is not agreement. Unity is not silence. Unity is not pretending we share the same history. Unity is the decision to remain connected without forcing sameness. It is the choice to say, I will stay present even when this challenges me. I will not demand your silence to soothe myself. I will not confuse my discomfort with your wrongdoing. Unity requires honesty, not brutal honesty, not weaponized honesty, but grounded honesty. The kind that says, this happened, this still matters, this shaped us, and we are still here. Unity does not mean we collapse into one story. It means we tell the truth side by side without hierarchy. Unity without erasure says, your experience does not cancel mine. My experience does not threaten yours. Difference is not a failure of unity. It is its foundation. Unity corrected is not quiet. It is steady. It is not fragile. It is resilient. And it does not ask anyone to disappear.
If unity feels like suffocation, it's not unity. If unity requires silence, it's not peace. Real unity feels like space.
A system that can hold difference without collapse has achieved stability.
That is unity, not erased, not flattened, not forced. unity corrected.